Recording in progress. We are there. Dorothy, we're here. Everyone's walking in right now. Quick, say something.
Hello, hello, good morning. And I do mean morning because it's very early for me.
Yeah. Good afternoon from me. It's an extremely civilized 3 o'clock in the afternoon in the UK. And I'm very sorry, Dorothy, that it's so early.
Afternoon.
Got to be done. It's got to be done. We've got to get speaking to the whole world.
That is true. That is true. So if people in the chat want to say, just as we're warming up and saying good morning or good evening or good afternoon, where you're from, I see Argentina, Czech Republic, Romania. I am on the west coast of the United States in Oregon. Oh, Mexico, Peru, close to my time zones. Rio. And lots of people very far from my time zones.
Yes, same here. Same here. Oh, hello, everyone from London. Victoria, hello. I'm just next to London. I'm in Cambridge. Kazakhstan, Denmark, Turkey, Georgia, Poland. Amazing. How is everyone feeling? Let's get an adjective from anyone.
How's everyone
about
feeling?
the way that you feel. Dorothy, what's your adjective? Can I guess your adjective by that expression?
I'm still sick.
You're sick. Oh, no.
I'm just getting over a cold, so I'm very congested, but I'm prepared. I have my herbal tea. I have my little cough drops in case I need them.
Yum.
And for an extreme emergency, I have my tissues. So hopefully I won't need those things and I can just talk, but
I wish that you could actually eat cough drops without having a cough, because they're something actually really tasty, aren't they, cough drops?
The problem is that because it's a little hard thing in your mouth, or you're kind of talking like this. So that's why I sort of have them next to me to offer moral support, but I'm hoping I don't have to actually take one to be able to talk. But
maybe not ideal when you're doing
this
public
is one
speaking.
recording I'm not going to want to listen to after, because I know I don't sound like my normal self, but
you sound great to me, Dorothy. You sound absolutely great. I mean, you can't hear anything of it.
Okay, good. And that's one of the wonders of Zoom, isn't it? Because if I were, even though I'm getting over it, I'm probably not contagious. If this were a live event, I'd be canceling.
Absolutely. It wouldn't be able to happen.
We're online and I don't have to. I can be here. So yay,
well,
Zoom.
So you think, Dorothy, as you know. How do you know? Technology these days.
And I can't spread anything. Even if I cough, everybody on the other end is completely safe. So
yeah. Thankfully, technology hasn't got that far yet. Anyway, so how is everyone else feeling? So I'm going to put my adjective in.
Put more cheerful adjectives down.
Excited. Invigorated. Awesome. That's amazing. Get well soon, Dorothy. Yes, get well soon, Dorothy. Inspired already. Amazing. You're inspired already. Everything started. We're just chit-chatting.
Well, it is inspiring to be disconnected to our global network of teachers. So.
Isn't it? It's so great, isn't it? It's just, I mean, you can't do these events every day. Of course you can't. But when you do, it's just so cool. Just every time, it just never gets old. Like, we're sort of people from all over the world.
There are many things I did not like about the pandemic, but the fact that we can all connect like this now on Zoom, that was the one silver lining, is we are so good at this now.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think teachers, if you don't mind me saying so, I think teachers have got a lot more used to sort of how it works as well. When we were doing this during COVID, they were sort of, I mean, we weren't used to it either. I think everyone was kind of
everybody, you're on mute. You know, is this thing on? And it was rough to learn at first, but now it just feels so relaxed and natural. We know how to use this button and that button.
Definitely, yeah. And everyone's so chatty and sort of using the chat box to just say, hey, you know, it's a normal thing.
Yeah,
you know,
it's nice.
Okay, well, any minute now, in about 3 minutes from now, I'm going to be handing over to Dorothy. But before I do, Dorothy, if you don't mind, I'm going to hijack.
Okay.
Just for a sec, while I share a few bits and bobs so that you kind of all know what's happening, what have you come to, what is this place, what have you done to your day? This is what you've done to your day. So you have registered for Educating Adults Day. This is the first day of its kind that we've done, which is a whole day dedicated to teaching adults English, or anything else that surrounds that, anything else that you might imagine that sort of surrounds that. So we've got three different areas. They're definitely crossing over these things that I'm talking about today, but there are three sort of distinct areas that we're talking about. So as you see, Dorothy Zemak is going to be introducing the session by talking about the integrated skills approach to teaching in an academic context, but not specifically, right, Dorothy? I think it's not just academic context. You can definitely use this elsewhere.
Academic plus.
Yeah. Okay, so and then followed by Dorothy's talk, we've got Bahar Hun, who's talking about professional development, and she's done her talk once today, this morning, and it is outstanding. It is a very clear and logical and inspiring process of how you and a team of teachers can develop yourselves as individuals and as a group. It's fantastic. I really, really can't wait for you to see that. And of course, as always, Katerina Protsenko delivering a very memorable talk on perishable versus durable skills and what those are, what does it mean, and what does that imply in the classroom. Beyond 21st century skills, embracing skill longevity. It's an amazing talk, and I can't wait for you to see it. Anyway, so that's happening. They're all 30 minutes long. The event today, they will finish at around 5 o'clock UK time. So depending on where you are. So Dorothy, what time does that mean for you? Is that 9 o'clock in the morning finish?
8 in the morning when I
8 in the morning finish. Okay. Anyway, I'm not going to go through all the time zones in the world. That's silly. You can find what time it is. It's 2 hours from now. It's about 2 hours long. Anyone who is joining on Zoom, you will get an email within the next week, and that will contain a certificate, and it will contain a virtual goodie bag. If you're watching on Facebook or LinkedIn, some people will be, you will have a link also at the end of the session, which you can click, and you can get your certificate that way. So you can still get it if you're watching on social media platforms, but if you're watching on Zoom, you have registered for this. So we know that you're here. We've registered that you've attended, and we'll send you that certificate within the next week. So please look out for that. Is that everything? Okay, and one more thing before I go. There's two more things, but the other thing's small. One quick thing is that in 2 weeks' time, we've got our final event of the year. This is I think it was our fourth winter fair that we're doing, Macmillan Education Winter Fair. It's sort of an excuse just to get together, really. We're talking about, this winter fair is about the history of English through literature, or rather the last 180 years of English through various pieces of literature that have come out. And that's David Crystal, the legend, David Crystal, taking us through English language from the last 180 years. What a pleasure that's going to be to see that talk. And his son, Ben Crystal, will be dramatising some of those texts and teaching you how you can help your students learn English through the dramatisation of certain literary texts. So a really unique session from in my opinion, two absolute legends of the industry. And Xie Wan Chong, who is an old favourite of ours, and we love having her back. She'll be talking about rhetoric in the classroom, so bringing sort of an old, I'm sure it is being taught in various shapes and forms now, but she's bringing back the ancient ways of teaching rhetoric and seeing if that will fit into the puzzle piece that English language teaching is today. That's on the 12th of December. Register now. Please do come on to that. It's going to be a hoot. Just so you know, polls will be popping up every now and again. We'll be asking you various things. Just share your thoughts with us. We're just sort of doing these little surveys and finding things out about the people that are coming to these events. So if you're up for it, please do just select your answer when it pops up on screen. If you're watching on Facebook and LinkedIn, we can't make that pop up on your screen, unfortunately. If you're on Zoom, though, they will be there. Dorothy, I think it's time to hand over to you.
Okay, wonderful.
Okay.
If you turn off your screen sharing, then I will turn on mine.
Done. Enjoy. See you later.
Bye. So here we go for me. Oh, and I do want to say before I start that this is being recorded And also you get a copy of the PowerPoint slides as a PDF later. So please don't feel that you have to write everything down or be taking pictures with your phone or something. If you want to come back and revisit some information, you will get it again. So please don't panic about that. So as Will has already introduced me and my topic, I am going to be talking, I thought about academic study, but the more I thought about what I actually want to say about integrated skills, I thought, it's actually applicable to any kind of teaching that you do. So my examples are all going to come from academic textbooks because that's what I have written that follow this approach. But the approach itself can be broader than just academic. So I hope that is clear. Here's a very brief outline of what I'm going to be covering in today's short session. And for me, 30 minutes is actually very short. So I apologize if I speak a little quickly, because I have a lot to say. But I want to spend most of my time on that number 3. That's why it's larger. So after we talk about what integrated skills are and why they're good, the real question is, how do I do that? What does that look like in an exercise? What does that look like in a classroom? What does that look like in a course? So that's where I want to spend the bulk of my time. Hopefully we'll have time for a few questions or comments at the end. If you have a question, drop it into that Q&A chat, and at the end, then we'll pick a few questions to ask me. And if we don't finish the conversation here, we can finish it somewhere else. So I'm pretty easy to find online. So I also want to give you a brief discussion of or some information about my background, so you understand where I'm coming from and what informs the kind of things I write. So I taught in the classroom 25 years before moving freelance and moving into teacher training, which I still do. I taught for over 5 years in Japan. I've taught for 4 or 5 years in North Africa and the Middle East, and for years in the United States. So I've had monolingual classrooms, I've had bilingual classrooms, and I've had in the US those multilingual classrooms where students come from Latin America and they come from Europe and they come from Africa. And so those kinds of backgrounds, pretty much all adults. I love kids, but I'm not a teacher of children. But when I say adults, I am also thinking university age young adults, and including high school emerging adults, people who will be adults soon. And about halfway through my teaching career, I began writing and editing materials. And with the integrated skills approach, I actually started first editing a series, not for Macmillan, but for some other publishers. And that's where I began to get really fascinated with this integrated skills approach and how that works. So I was thrilled when my first publisher, who is Macmillan, I've been writing for them since 1997 about both single skill books and course books. But when they asked me to be the series consultant and also a co-author on one level of Skillful, their integrated skills course, I thought, oh, how wonderful. It's all coming together. So I don't know if anybody who's here is already a current user of Skillful. This is the current edition. This is not the official Macmillan picture from their website. These are my Skillfuls on my own living room floor when the day they arrived, and I was so excited. So this is the current edition, which is the second edition out now. But, and you are some of the first people to see this, we have a third edition coming out that I've been working on all year. These are the bright, cheerful reading and writing covers. And these are rolling out now, really. So I don't have a box of them on my floor yet, but hopefully I will soon. So I do want to say that my examples that I'm going to be showing you of actual exercises and materials, those all come from Skillful, because that's the series I know, and that's the series I've written on and worked on. But the approach doesn't have to be used with just one book. The approach can be used with other books. It can be used with no books. That's up to you and your classroom. So what does integrated skills mean? And I don't mean means in the dictionary. So what does it mean in the world of textbooks? So in the world of textbooks, it means combined reading and writing in one book or class or course, or listening and speaking together in one class or course. So that you, not that you teaching speaking, and so obviously you have to do some listening, or you're teaching listening with a little bit of speaking, but really you're spending an equal amount of time and giving an equal amount of attention to both skills. When I was teaching in Japan, one question that my students often ask me, more in Japan than any other country, which is ironic, they'd say, why is English so fast? Listening is hard for me just because English speakers speak so quickly. And I would say, really? Because actually English is slower than Japanese. And this always surprised people. They would say, no, Japanese is so slow and relaxed, but English is so fast. But actually, no, Japanese has the honor of being the fastest spoken language by syllable rate in the world. English is quick, but we're not as fast as Japanese. And yet, even people who are bilingual in those two languages often guess that English is faster because English feels faster. So why? Why does English feel so fast? And I would say it's because of our schwa sound, that sound, and contractions in spoken English, and elisions, those connections between words where one word blends into the next word. So, for example, if a student, a learner, says to me, I can sing, but I can't dance. For me, I can understand that person. The meaning is not hard to hear. But if a learner speaks like that, they're probably not going to understand me when I say, I can sing, but I can't dance. They hear a few accented syllables, but the meaning of the sentence isn't there. Because, and even if I say it very slowly, I can sing, but I can't dance. If they don't know how to handle that contraction and the way a T and a D in English sort of merge together, and that the vowel sound in can is dropped into a schwa, I can sing. If they don't know how that works, if they can't say that, or if they don't say that, it's so much harder to hear and understand. So although a slower kind of incorrect intonation will work for me to understand them, it makes them understanding me so much more difficult. But if they learn the two together, if they learn speaking and listening at the same time, the whole thing is easier. They sound more natural and they can hear more easily. A speaking skill that I think is helped a lot by listening. I often have higher level students ask me, but when I'm trying to say something longer, I have to stop and think about ideas and think about vocabulary and plan my sentences. But when I stop, somebody thinks I'm done speaking and they interrupt and I've lost my chance. What can I do in English? Well, this happens, of course, in every language. What they need is those phrases in English that let the listener know, no, I'm still speaking. I'm keeping my time. I'm planning my next thing. Let me see. Well, one way to look at this is, and those are my planning phrases in English. So once they know how to listen for those and see how they work, not only can they use them themselves when they're speaking, but they also know when not to interrupt another speaker who is holding the floor. So it's great to teach those skills together because they see those connections. So listening and speaking is one natural integration. The other one would be reading and writing. So when students ask me, how can I make my writing sound more natural? I know they're probably the kind of careful student who likes to be correct and they want to write a sentence that is grammatically correct, but then they're playing it safe and they're writing short, simple sentences. And whether or not they're grammatically correct, they don't sound like sophisticated, fluent, elegant English. Because what they need are longer sentences, compound sentences, complex sentences, and sentence variety. A long sentence followed by a short sentence, right? A single clause followed by a sentence with a simple clause and a dependent clause. But you can't practice sentence variety in isolation, right? By definition, you need to practice it in a longer text. And it's so much easier if you start from reading and you notice these things, and you can go through a text and see how many different kinds of sentences there are, and look at, excuse me, how many short sentences there are per paragraph, how many long sentences, how many complex sentences, how many compound. So to notice that first in reading makes it so much easier to apply that in writing. But writing also helps reading, right? If you have ever had a student express to you that feeling of I know all the words in the sentence, but it's a long sentence. I start at the beginning, I read to the end, and at the end, I have no idea what the meaning is, even though I know all of the words. And this happens in paragraphs, it happens in pages of reading, even when the student is concentrating and reading and they think they understand, but at the end, there's like, I've somehow missed the sense. I feel lost. But working on writing skills makes that easier, because where they're getting lost is not seeing those smaller units of organization. And punctuation helps us a little with this, but not entirely. But if they begin to see elements of an English sentence as units, here's a prepositional phrase, and they see which units and slots can move, and I can put that prepositional phrase at the end of the sentence. I can put it at the beginning of the sentence. I can put it in the middle of the sentence, but I can't put it between these two things. Then they naturally begin to, as they're reading, chunk those thought groups, verb phrases and prepositional phrases into little units of meaning, and it makes reading so much easier. And a lot of students don't know they're missing this skill because they think the key to reading is more vocabulary, and more vocabulary will help you, obviously, but there's more to it than that. But when you learn to write phrases and you work with manipulating smaller chunks, that helps your overall reading. So why 2 skills instead of 4 skills in a course book? And I do want to first say that I'm not saying that integrating skills is the only way to teach. I'm not even necessarily saying it's the best way to teach. I'm saying it's a way to teach. And there is no one true method that is the best method for every teacher and every class and every group of students. That's your judgment call as a teacher, to evaluate your situation and your class and your personality and your teaching style. What I want to do today is show you one good approach that for me has been very effective with students. And my simple answer to why 2 skills instead of 1 or 4 is because sometimes 1 is too few. They miss those connections, and 4 is too many. And 2 is just it's just a good number. What I'm also a course book author. I've certainly written 4 skills courses, but when I have classes of students who can do the exercises on one page and the next page and the next page, all through the 8 or 10 pages of the unit, but at the end of the unit, although they haven't made any mistakes, their English still isn't any better, I know the input has been too heavy. Right? They've kind of learned too much too quickly. And what they actually needed was more opportunities to practice 2 skills like listening and speaking or reading and writing together to really get stronger at that. So even when I have classes of people who want sort of all skills together, what I do as a teacher is I think, where are they weakest? If they're pretty good at listening and speaking, then I want them in a reading writing book. If they're great at reading and writing, then I want them in a listening speaking book. And of course, every skill is going to be present in some sense, but I want to concentrate on the ones they find hardest. And having just those two skills gives them enough time to practice and really master those skills. So how does this happen and what does this look like? So when I say we here, how do we do this? I don't mean we, the whole world. I mean, we textbook authors, and specifically authors on the Skillful series, because that's the one that I was overseeing and the one that I know, and the one that I wrote part of myself. So step 0 for us in a series like this is to begin with the topic. So it's a topic-based course. And at the very beginning, we sat down with editors and a team of authors, and we have 5 levels. It goes from A1 all the way up to C1. And we brainstormed topics, and we sort of gave each level some topics and then sent the authors off to write. So we get a topic for a unit, and that's kind of our 0 starting point. Then comes step 1. And you will notice I have 2 step 1s because it depends on the topic and it depends on the day, but often I'm kind of doing those 2 step 1s at the same time. So each unit of Skillful, like for the reading, writing books, there are 2 main readings. The first one is a little bit shorter and easier. The second one is kind of a meatier main text. And then we end with a writing assignment for the students. So I'm aware, that second number 1, I'm aware of what I want students to be able to do. But probably the first thing that I sit down to create is that middle reading, is that longer text. And same for the listening speaking. They have listenings and then a final speaking project at the end. So they're thinking, what am I preparing students for? But they probably begin writing that main text. So after I've written what I hope is an engaging, interesting, useful text, then I look at all the language there and I think, if I were a student coming into this unit, learning this, what do I need to know? What do I need to understand in order to be able to attack this text? And I do think there's a difference between practicing English and teaching English. So I want my text to be a little bit above the level of where students are, so that without this teaching, they would find it challenging. But with this teaching, they find it possible. So I'm looking at my text to think, where are my challenge points? What reading skills do they need? What vocabulary do they need? What functional language do they need? What grammar? Do they need any background knowledge in order to approach this topic? Because that's the challenge of academic English, is how do we move students from the personal to the more universal of academic language? So what is it that they need to do for the text? And then what is it that they need to be able to produce in order to do that final project? And often those are the same. Sometimes there's a little difference between them. So I keep adjusting my input and adjusting my output until we have a reasonable overlap. It's never going to be a total overlap, but I want to make sure that anything that they're inputting is going to help them with their own output. Then, for all of those things that they need to learn, right, reading skills or listening skills or vocabulary or background knowledge or grammar, then those become sort of mini lessons within the lesson. And we have a presentation perhaps, or we ask them to notice and identify some points. Then a lot of controlled practice, a lot of exercises. And the first exercises after a presentation, I feel, should be pretty easy. I want students to think, oh, I can do this. I'm good at this. And then they get a little less controlled until finally I'm giving them a situation where this language would come up. So it's a freer practice. So I want to give you some examples of what this looks like on a page. So this is from the listening speaking level 2. So that's at a B1 level. So we have 5 levels. I've chosen to show you today 2 of our middle levels, but you can imagine it up or down in level. So we're talking about speaking and listening. Phrasal verbs is a pretty natural grammar point because they are so common in spoken English. So we have a presentation where we talk about the difference between a base verb catch and a phrasal verb catch up. And what I think of are pretty easy exercises, a matching that's pretty controlled. So they reinforce the meaning. Then, a kind of controlled practice, working down to a freer practice at the bottom, ask and answer questions from exercise 2. So they're speaking it and they're hearing it. But the way we tie this into listening, and I love this label of pronunciation for listening, because this is what I said with I can sing, but I can't dance. The pronunciation helps your listening so much. So if you know with a phrasal verb what syllables to stress, not only will you speak more naturally, but suddenly it becomes easier to hear those things. And those prepositions at the end of a phrasal verb can be hard to catch if you're waiting to hear them emphasized in the same way that a verb is emphasized, and they're not. So we explain the pronunciation point, give them some listening practice where they're focused just on those points, and then move to a freer practice. Find the phrasal verbs yourself. What would you stress? Then listen and check. If I were teaching this lesson myself, I would add in some more steps here that are not in the textbook. And I hope no matter what materials you use, that as teachers, you are doing this all the time, that you are taking sort of the raw materials, the base materials that we have given you, and adding your own instructions all the time. I can't put into one student book all the exercises that I would do because the book would be this thick and nobody could afford it or hold it. So what I would do here is maybe some choral repetition. I might say the sentence myself, have the class say it back. We can listen to the recording, have them repeat several times, have them work in small groups or in pairs. One student says the sentence, other student can close their eyes and raise their hand when they hear the phrasal verb, or they can be looking at each other and giving each other feedback. I think you emphasized this correctly. I think you didn't. Let's listen again. I do a lot of repeating and speaking drilling here before we moved on to something completely free. This is something that's a little, it's not broken down into 6 steps, but such an important listening point for students first. How do you know when speakers are telling you something is important, especially if you're doing test prep with your students for TOEFL or IELTS or any kind of national exam like that? When listening, it's really useful to know what's a main point, what's a digression, right? And these phrases, first they learn to hear them, but then of course, when they give a presentation, they can turn around and identify their main points the same way. Instead of saying, my first main point is, they can do it the same way that fluent speakers do. So this photo, it's not just to wake you up, it's to remind me that now we're going to talk about a reading writing unit. This is from a unit that I wrote on fire. That was my topic. So when I sit down, so this is now a B2 level. This is from our book 3, a little bit higher level. So when I think about my global topic and I'm planning, what do I want to write about fire? I'm also thinking, first, what do I want students to produce as a piece of writing at the end? What can students write about fire? I assume before they go through this unit, they can't write much about fire because they're probably not experts on fire. So I need to give them information as well as skills so that they can write something. When I look at something like this, particularly someone like me who lives in the western part of the United States, where we have problems every summer now with forest fires, I think problem, solution. So I chose my final writing task first. In my head, that's the first thing that came to me, is like, we're going to write a problem solution text. I didn't write this whole page first. I just did problem solution essay and made a note on a piece of paper. And then I went back and thought about my texts. So that longest main second reading is about climate change and causes of forest fires and solutions. So they're reading a problem solution text, although a much more sophisticated one than they'll write. But then when I think back one step further of what's my first reading going to be about, I think in order to approach this topic, they need some basic information and some basic vocabulary, not only about problems and solutions, but about fire. So the first reading is about causes of wildfires. I actually have them guess, that's my prediction exercise, what are the top 5 causes of wildfire? And if we had an hour, I would make you do that too. But then the answers are revealed, and they're more prepared for a deeper reading. Once I have those readings, then I begin pulling out my language skills. So I don't expect students at the B2 level to write a text as sophisticated as the text that I, a fluent speaker, am writing in a textbook. They're not supposed to produce something that's a journal quality article. So we have a third, you could call it a reading, that's an example of the kind of essay we expect them to write. So it's a model essay on a very similar question, not the same question, because we don't want to take possibilities away from students. But so it's another text of the quality that we are going to guide them to write, but on the same topic with problem and solution as a genre. And you'll notice some questions, and they do a little bit of simple analysis of the writing model the same way they do of the main readings. So then I picked the writing skill that I think students need in order to write a problem solution essay. And one skill is supporting your arguments. If you are going to identify a problem and propose a solution, you need to argue that your solution is a good solution, and that your problem is a significant problem. So I ask for some reasons, some examples, expert testimony, but these are things that are actually in the readings as well. The vocabulary then works in both directions. So we have vocabulary collocations around problems. They can use this in their writing, but they've seen it in the reading. The grammar came from that second reading of mine. Once it was in the second reading, I made sure it appeared in the first reading, and that it would be useful grammar for them in their own writing. And this is grammar that I just looked at what I had created and said, oh, wow, sure are a lot of gerunds and reduced clauses for this topic. Let's take a look at that. There are also smaller skills that are things I want them to notice and understand about the reading that I would say more advanced students could use in their own writing, but lower level students might not. But the information is out there for them. Of the skills that we absolutely want them to have in their writing, we have a partner exercise and a self-reflection, a peer review, where they can make sure that they've used the language that we want them to use. And if they haven't, they can put it in before they revise it and give it to a teacher for a grade. So how can you do this if you are not going to sit down and write a whole textbook? How can you use this approach in your teaching? So I would suggest that you follow a similar process, that you start with what students should be able to do, whether they want to do this, need to do this. Do they need to write a cover letter for a job application? Do they need to read a website? What is it that they need to do in English? And then what do they need to know how to do in order to do that? So if they need to give an opinion, or if they need to classify information, whatever skills they need, whether they're linguistic skills or functional skills, identify them, write them down kind of one by one, so you know what you're looking for, and then look for models. You can look for podcasts, you can look for YouTube clips, you can look for articles that have those features that you want. If you can't find them anywhere, that's a signal that maybe you haven't identified the correct ones. But it's easier than you think if you've correctly identified what students have to do, is to find examples of fluent English speakers doing those things. You can, if it's something written, you can adjust it a bit. You can even re-record something if you want to change it a bit and salt some skills in. And then break it down and practice the smaller pieces that come from that larger text. Pull out the grammar, pull out the vocabulary, do some work with it. And just as it's not sexy these days to have students do a lot of memorizing or practicing or drilling or repeating, but I really think it's so important for your students to really learn the language. Don't be afraid to have them do a little hard work so that the language becomes easier for them. Then gradually work up to longer, less controlled tasks, have them write a whole sentence instead of fill in a gap, and then offer prompts or situations where they can use those skills inside a more fluent whole. Have my eye on the time. Hopefully we do have time for a few questions or comments. I will turn that over to Will, who I hope has been reading the question, the Q&A chat.
Hello.
I see him. Hello.
Hello. Thank you very much, Dorothy. Absolutely wonderful. As per normal, as per this morning. Thank you so much. So we have got a couple of questions, if that's all right.
Good.
Well, one person's asking about introducing writing to basic students. Would you use this approach, do you think, sort of to introduce writing?
Oh yeah. I'm writing for some reason is one of the harder skills to teach. I think students are reluctant, teachers are reluctant. Part of that is the marking and grading problem. That's a whole different webinar. But if you have them from the very beginning, writing, whether it's sentences or paragraphs, the same grammar and functions that they're reading, it will make the reading easier. And if you give them more and more models of what you want them to write, the more times they read it, the better they will be at writing it. That's one reason I'm such a huge believer in peer review, which I know sometimes teachers and students fight me on, but I fight back. And I think if your students don't like it, you're not doing it right. But every time when students share writing with each other, they're getting that many more models, right? And that much more inspiration. So at the lower level where texts are short, have them do peer review with more than one student. Have them share in a group. Let them see 6 different examples of a paragraph as they share their one different example. And that's an easy way to get a lot of model texts.
Okay, great. Thanks, Dorothy. And that's not, so you don't feel that sort of wouldn't start fossilizing the wrong sort of thing?
Students don't learn each other's errors. I know that's a fear, but research shows that it just doesn't happen that way anymore. They don't pick up each other's spoken errors either. Okay,
great. Lovely. Thank you. All right. So they are coming in now. What time is it? We've got some time.
Any more? Is there any more questions?
Yeah. So just we've got quite a few now. Just give me 10 seconds. I'm just reading it through.
To pick some.
Yeah, because they've all just come in. Right. What could be some challenges for teachers and learners using this book when it comes to writing skills? Are there any challenges for the teacher or for the student in using this?
I think the main challenge for teachers, and this is more kind of a timing challenge, is to give more time to the readings and then get to the writing and think, oh no, it's already November. We've really got to move on to unit 5. I'll just assign it as homework and just sort of rush through the writing. And it's just experience, you know, as you get to know your students better and to know how much time they should spend with writing. I love to have my students start the writing process, start the brainstorming, outlining in class so that I know it happens.
Okay.
Because if you tell them about the wonderful, the benefits of brainstorming and outlining and send them home, and they wait till it's 11 o'clock at night and their homework is due, some of them just go, yeah, I don't have time for that. I'm just going to write my first draft. So that they don't skip those crucial steps, I like to start that in class, which means you have to budget class time for it.
Okay, got it. And so Tamar has put a question out there. I wonder if I'm going to ask it to you. So I think it's important to teach students how to paraphrase from the beginning rather than modeling. Why do you think modeling is more important?
I don't think it's either or. I think you have to do both, right? I think they have to see an example of, this is a good paraphrase, this is an unsuccessful paraphrase, or this is a weak paraphrase, this is a strong paraphrase.
Okay.
And I think the more examples they have of that, the easier it is for them to do the practice. Because what students want to first do is just go for synonyms, right? And they go to a dictionary or a thesaurus and they change the verb to something with a similar meaning. They change the noun to something with a similar meaning. And now they have a badly paraphrased sentence that just isn't as good.
Yeah.
But what we want them to do is to change the syntax, to really sort of throw it out, keep the ideas, and say it another way.
Yeah, mix it up.
But if you could show them an example of, here's a weak paraphrase, here's a strong paraphrase, and then you say, okay, now you do what I've taught you. Having seen those examples, they know what they're trying to do. Students want to do things correctly. Most students, 99% of students want to do it right, but they want to know what it is they're supposed to do. So if they know what the end goal looks like, it's easier for them to actually do that.
To create a bridge rather than the bridge and the next piece. Yeah. Thank you so much, Dorothy. I think we've taken way too much of your day so far, and it's time you went off and did what you do at 8 o'clock in the morning.
Yeah, sleep. But I do also want to thank people here who have interrupted their day and taken time. Give yourselves a round of applause because you showed up, you invested in yourself and your teaching. Thank you so much. If you want to continue this conversation with me, that's my website. There's a contact form. I'm also pretty active on Facebook. I do take friend requests from language teachers, as long as I can look at your profile and see that you talk about education and teaching and learning, at least sometimes in English. If you search for my name, I have an Instagram account, but nothing ever happens there. That's not where my conversations are. You're welcome to follow me. You'll probably never see anything. But I'm always happy to talk to teachers about teaching because that is my passion. So thank you for coming and for letting me share my ideas.
Thanks a lot, Dorothy. Amazing. Well, I think, time to say thank you and adieu. Have a lovely sleep, Dorothy. We'll see you for the final session.
All right. Bye-bye. Thank you so much.
See you. Okay, so you got me for a minute, everybody. Let me just set myself up. Actually, while I'm setting myself up, Daria, could you please put the first poll up on the screen? Let's have a look at this. If you're on Facebook or LinkedIn, I'm going to read it out to you in a sec, but we're doing a bit of a poll for the people on Zoom. So if you're watching on Facebook and LinkedIn, you can't see this. Please do put your answer in the comments box, and we can see that. So just while you're putting your answer there, I'm just going to get myself a bit ready. Yeah, just put the answer in there when you're ready. So the question is, for those who are on Facebook and LinkedIn, the question is, if you had to choose one, which single competency do you think is most essential for adult learners in the context of work and life. So of these three, I'm about to say them. So Facebook, LinkedIn, if you're ready to sort of put your keyboard ready, I don't know what I was going to say there. Get ready to answer this question. If you had to choose one, which single competency do you find most essential for adult learners in the context of work and life? Option one is providing language for students to thrive in academic contexts. Secondly, helping students to communicate effectively. Or thirdly, preparing students for life and work. So which is the most essential for adult learners? Language for academic contexts, communicative effectiveness, I don't know if that's the way you say that, and preparation for students in life and work. Feel free to put why as well in the comments or the chat if you're in Zoom. Why would you answer that? So, okay, good stuff. I've actually closed it. I can't see it anymore. Okay. Okay. All right. I think it's probably time to share. I'm going to close it down in a few seconds if you haven't. Okay. All right. Yeah. Daria has got her finger on that mouse. She is ready for this. So I'm going to close it in a few secs. Last chance. Almost gone. Done. So Daria, if you could just stop sharing that, I'll do it. Stop sharing and then share results. There we go. So, oh, you've got the results already, I think. So very few, actually, not very few, but 9% prioritize language for an academic context. Nearly 60% of you feel it's most essential to teach effective communication. And then about a third of you believe that it's most important to prepare students for life and work. I suppose there's some crossover in all three of those, isn't there? I mean, one of them specifically kind of encompasses all three. But anyway, thanks for sharing. Thanks so much for sharing. We'll have a couple more of those as we go on. So let me just share my screen. Stop sharing that. Here we go. And I'm going to assume that you can see that just fine. So this is what Dorothy was just showing you. This is a brand new, not a brand new course, it's the new edition, third edition of Skillful, Dorothy's hugely successful academic English series. So in Dorothy's session just now, she took you through the integrated skills approach and how it equips students with the tools they need to understand, to evaluate and interact with academic content. Dorothy is the series consultant for this third edition, and it's coming soon. We'll say, let's say spring next year, but you can actually look at it now and see if it's going to be right for your next academic year already. The website's already there. There's a link in the chat. There's a link just below. There'll be a link in the comments on social media, and there's a QR code on the screen right now. It's 5 levels and it's designed to support students who want to sort of gain that extra edge in the university English programs. It's got a step-by-step teaching approach and strong academic skills focus, which aims to assist students in developing the language, of course, the language, but also the confidence and the abilities that you need to do well while you're studying and after that in your career. So if you want to learn more about this, we have now got a website. It's live. You can have a look and explore this course. The second edition is available now. But if you want to look at the third edition, there is the information for you if you want to have a look. So there you go. Skillful third edition. Thank you, Dorothy. Okay, Bahar, are you there? And Dorothy, if you're still there, you're welcome to go backstage as well, if you want. There you go. Thanks, Dorothy. Bahar, are you there? Stop sharing. Hello, you're all, I can't hear you actually. I don't know if that's just me.
Oh, okay.
I can't hear you yet. Yes, I could hear you just then. Not now.
Can you hear me now? Can you hear me now?
I can. There's a bit of a delay actually, Bahar. There is a delay. I'll tell you what. I
Shall I
think
go?
just the best thing, just the quickest thing. Yeah, if I'm going to introduce you and talk about you while you're not here, behind your back, Bahar, I'm going to talk about you. You go out and come back in.
Okay.
Thanks. Okay, so you can see my screen. Oh no, I've stopped sharing. Will. There you go. So all about Bahar. She is about to teach you about teacher development. This session is awesome. It's really the answer that you need. If you're in a group of teachers and you're doing CPD and you feel it needs a bit more structure, or you need a bit more help with finding your own path, this is an absolutely perfect, wonderfully written session by Bahar. She's a lecturer, she's a teacher trainer, and has for years. Hello.
Hi, can you hear me now, Will?
Yes, I can hear you, but it's not syncing up with your video. I think let's just give it a go, because we can see your slides, you can talk, so long as we can sort of hear things you're saying, we should be okay. Let's just try it. You're a CELTA trainer. So Bahar, what made you, what helped? So at one point you were a teacher. Are you still actually a teacher now?
Yes, I am. Yes.
You are.
Yes, I am. Yes.
So but at some point you obviously digressed into the teacher training quite intensely. What made you why did you do that? Why did you progress from teaching into teacher training?
Actually, it's a long story. I have been in the field of ELT for 30 years, and I worked in different contexts, all the way from pre-service education to in-service education. So since day one, I can say I have been involved in teacher education, starting with pre-service. So 30 years of experience in the field, I can say. Both as a teacher and as a teacher educator at the same time. Yeah.
Brilliant. Well, thank you so much, Bahar. This is a brilliant session. I can't wait to see it again.
Thank you.
And I'll see you in about half an hour. Enjoy, everyone. Bye.
Thank you so much. Thank you. All right. I hope everybody can hear me and see me fine. I'm going to share my screen now. Okay, can you see my screen? Great, awesome, thank you. Okay, good morning, good evening, good afternoon, depending on where you are. I am thrilled to be here. I am happy beyond words and excited beyond words, because I am together with my colleagues from all around the world. So my special thanks go to Macmillan Education for giving me this opportunity to get together with with my colleagues, I should say, from around the globe. Few minutes ago, Dorothy talked about how you can teach skills to your adult or adultish, in her terms, learners. And I will be looking at the other end. I will be talking about how we as teachers learn. So in this session, we will be talking about adult learning as teachers, professional development, continuous learning, never-ending learning, a lot of learning. And I consider myself a very lucky speaker today, because I am speaking to 510 professionals who are clearly committed to their professional development. Otherwise, you wouldn't be here. So that's fantastic, I think. All right, so let's take a look at what we will be talking about in the next half an hour. We will try to define what professional development is and why we should pursue professional development. And we are going to highlight the importance of professional development as a personal initiative. And then we will say, of course, we need institutional support too. And we will briefly discuss how institutions can provide support for teachers' professional development. Does that sound like a good plan? Yeah? Okay, thank you. Thank you. So now I'm going to do something. I'm going to show you a visual first, a picture, okay? Then I'm going to show you a video if technology works. And then I will be asking you the same question. The question is, what has it got to do with professional development? All right, so first image I am going to show you is this. So can you look at this image here and tell me what it has got to do with professional development? Can you write in the chat panel, please, for me? reflection. Okay. We might see ourselves as lions, but we're not. Confidence, be brave. Okay. Wrong self-evaluation, reflection. Oh my God, wonderful, wonderful. Okay. Wow, pouring. Thank you so much, everyone. Thank you. That's it. You got it. You got it. That's all about perfect answers. That's all about reflection, right? It is how we look at ourselves as teachers and how we can identify our weaknesses and strengths. Are we the lions? Are we the cats? Or are we the cats looking in the mirror at our images and seeing ourselves as lions, or vice versa, right? So it is true critical reflection of our teacher performance. Now I'm going to stop sharing this PowerPoint presentation and I will share a video. Okay, now in this video, they will be asking you a question. So please try to answer this question. All right, let's get started. It's super short.
This is an awareness test. How many passes does the team in white make?
Go!
The answer is 13. But did you see the moonwalking bear?
Go!
Okay, so did you give the correct answer? Did you see the moonwalking bear? Yeah. Let me see. Okay. You could, all right. Not all the correct answers, 30, but no bear, right? So most of us missed the bear. I missed it when I first watched the video too. Right. So what does this show us? What has it got to do with professional development? Why are we looking at this video? We just see what we are told to, right? We are not aware of every possible angles. Good. We focus on only one thing. That's good. We are missing on something. Right. Right. Thank you. Very good answers. Thank you so much. Okay. So the point here is, if you look at our performance as teachers, classroom is it's a complicated place, right? Lots of things happen at the same time. And as teachers, it is so easy for us to miss out certain things, right? So what do we need in order to catch what we might be missing? Because what we are missing might be very, very important for our students' learning. So who can help us? We need feedback, right? From students. Good. What else? Can you type in the chat panel, please? Other teachers? Absolutely. Colleagues? Yeah. Yeah. Supervisors, professionals, our boss, experienced people. Okay. And self. Good. Good. All the correct answers. All the correct answers. You are amazing. Okay. So you can give yourself feedback by recording your classes and going back and watching them. And if you haven't done it yet, I highly recommend you do it and you try it at least once, and you will see what a great eye-opener it is watching yourself teach. It's amazing. So you can see what you might have missed. You can ask your students, you can ask your colleagues, you can invite them to come and observe your classes, or you can ask the teacher educators around you to come with, to invite them. You can invite them to your classes and ask them to give you feedback about your teaching. All right. Now, so far we talked about how we can identify our weaknesses and strengths. Now, very briefly, I would like to show you the characteristics of effective schools. As you will agree, they are all important points, but can you tell me one of these items on the list which is the most relevant to our discussion topic today? Which one can it be? Okay. Effective environment, learning environment. I know all of them, but one of them is super closely related to our discussion point today. Good learning environment. Okay. Positive. All right. All of them. All of them. Right. Okay. High expect. Great. Okay. All right. Thank you. Thank you. If we want our schools to be effective, we want our school to be a learning organization, right? And in order for a school to be an effective learning organization, the teachers working there should be learning teachers. The managers working there should be learning managers. All right, so all the stakeholders should be learning something new in order to make the school more effective. So I know the profile. I can guess that I'm talking to a group of teachers, teacher educators, ELT managers. That's the profile I'm guessing. Am I correct? Yeah, so that applies to everyone. Professional development. So I think we established the importance of professional development from both personal and institutional perspectives. We will go deeper into that in a minute, but I'm curious about your understanding of professional development. Can you use the chat panel and type in like short phrases or short sentences about your understanding of PD before I show you the book definitions, please? Never stop learning. Exactly, Luciana. Okay, updating skills, reskills. Growing professionally. Okay. Updating skills, reskills. That's the next topic. Kate will be telling wonderful things about this coming up after me. Self-reflect. Never-ending process. Good. Okay. Continuous learning, always learning. Oh my God, I love your answers. I love your answers. Your answers are much better than the ones I am about to show you. Thank you so much. All right, thanks. Now here are a couple of definitions, but before I show you the definitions, I have to share this slide with you because this is something I wholeheartedly believe is very true. And please read it and tell me if you agree. Do you agree? 100%. I know. Yeah. You might have the best curriculum in the world. You might have the best testing assessment systems in the world. You might have the best books in the world. But if you are not investing in teacher quality, professional development and continuous learning of the teachers, then others may not be very meaningful. All right. So epicenter is always the teacher, always. So going back to definition of professional development. Here is one from Richards, the longer term development of the individual teacher over time, longer term. So this definition here suggests that it is continuous, it's ongoing, right? How about this one? Please read this and tell me, why do you think I have underlined some of the words in this definition? Why do you think I underlined these words? It's not true. Exactly. Exactly. Mm-hmm. Very good answers. Thank you. Thank you. Yeah. So I underline teachers learning, how they learn, how they apply their knowledge. So I try to emphasize here that it comes from within. It boils down to individual teacher to desire to professionally develop. All right. How about these two here? Can you look at these two definitions of PD and tell me one keyword that is common in both? Process is common, but there's one more word that is more important, that is common in both. Okay. One more. Right, now you got it. Now you got it. Students. Improve the learning of students to meet students' needs. Why am I doing this? Why am I highlighting this? It is because sometimes we lose sight of the students' needs and students' learning. And we are so much involved in discussing the reasons of professional development and types of professional development and methods of professional development. We lose sight of students. We should never forget that whatever we are doing, it's for our students' learning. Why are we here right now at this time of the day? 500 some odd people. Why are you here today? Because you want to develop professionally so that you can be more effective teachers for your learners, right? So the end receivers are always our lovely, dear students. Okay. Now we are going to look at some facts, and I'm sure you will agree with them. I think we will all agree that teaching is a learning profession, and our aim should be improve the high quality professional development, right? Do you also agree that students achieve more when taught by effective teachers? You can see some thumbs up happening on my screen. I can't see you, but I can see thumbs up. Good, okay. And do you also agree that not all the teachers are equally effective? There is variety for teacher effectiveness. So professional needs of teachers might be different, all right? All right, how about this quotation here by Penny Earl? I know you are not one of these teachers, but do you know anyone around you or you met once with 1 year experience repeated 20 times? Do you know? Have you ever met? Many. Many, Eylem says. Absolutely. I know, right? I know. It's a fact. It's a fact. There are teachers out there. Yeah. So for those teachers out there who have 1 year of experience repeated 20 times, what is the worst possible thing that can happen to those type of teachers? Worst possible thing. Yes. Okay, wow. Okay, I see it. Lots of burnouts. That's what I was. Okay, all the answers are correct. Absolutely. Old and tired. Burnout is the word. Yeah. I think that is the worst possible thing that can happen to us as teachers. So in order to, this is not something desired, right? We don't want that. So in order to avoid teacher burnout, we need to be engaged in professional development activities to keep our batteries charged, right? So can you think of some PD activities? What are you doing for your own professional development other than attending webinars like this? Can you type in the chat panel? Articles, okay. Absolutely, attending this webinar is on top of the list. conferences, action research, videos, sure, articles, peer observation, podcasts, videos, you name it. Blogs, webinars, okay. Podcasts. You guys are amazing. You are absolutely amazing. Right, right. So it's a long, long list, right? So I will just very briefly show you some. Your list was better again than my list. If you look at the slide here, you will see some, if you wish, you may be engaged in individual PD activities like self-observation, reflection, keeping journals, action research, teacher portfolios, blogs. You can become members of associations like IATEFL or TESOL International. You can attend conferences, seminars, webinars of this kind. Or if you want, you can work with your colleagues and you can be engaged in collaborative PD activities like peer observations, like you said, keeping collaborative journals. You can do joint research, case studies, team teaching. It's amazing. Peer coaching, video coaching, right? There are so many different ways of professional development. I have to add one thing to that list. Are you familiar with Language Hub series of Macmillan? This one here, Language Hub. If you are not familiar, please make sure you familiarize yourself with the book, especially the teacher's book. The teacher's book of Language Hub series, they have methodology hubs in the teacher's book, as you can see here on the bottom of the slide. There are amazing suggestions for your professional development, and these suggestions are made by ELT legends like Jim Scrivener or Scott Thornberry. So may I highly recommend and encourage you to familiarize yourselves with this book and the methodology hub section of the teacher's book, if you already haven't done so. It's amazing, and I will show you one more example. This example you see here on this slide is from the pre-intermediate level. And this one here, you will see again, the methodology hub. This one is from intermediate level. And the entire series is filled of wonderful, wonderful suggestions, ideas, information for your professional development. So make sure you check that out. And I'm sure Will is going to give you more detailed information about the book series coming up. All right, so why should we be engaged in professional development? What are the personal benefits? If we are engaged in different activities, PD activities, we gain a career focus and we may specialize in certain areas. Effectiveness with the acquisition and knowledge of skills, inspiration, lots of self-confidence. You will have a better understanding of your context, your setting, teaching context. You will have, more importantly, you will have better understanding of self-reflection. Remember lying cat thing? Your flexibility, your tolerance levels will increase, and you will definitely be a better team worker because PD fosters sharing and increases empathy, and it increases creativity. So lots of personal benefits. But remember, we talked about effective schools, learning organizations. Obviously, there are benefits for institutions as well. So if the institutions are attaching importance to their teachers' professional development, number one, it pleases all the stakeholders. The most important, it increases the quality of teaching overall in the institution. It enhances collaboration among teachers. It makes sure everybody speaks the same language, everybody's on the same page, common language. It creates institutional know-how, and it strengthens collaboration with other institutions, and it makes your institution a more valuable institution. Tons of benefits for institutions as well. So far I have been speaking about professional development very highly, and I know judging from your answers in the chat panel, you are also devoted to professional development. But do you think everybody is like you guys? Do you think all the teachers have the same attitude towards professional development? Do you think everybody is jumping up and down in excitement that they want to develop professionally? No, not really. Not sure. Not all, of course, not all. Yeah. I know. Unfortunately, not all the teachers have the same attitude like you guys do. Why are we doing professional development activities? Because, as Gusky says, these kind of professional development programs aim to bring change in 3 areas: our classroom practices, our attitudes and beliefs, and most importantly, our students' learning outcomes. So we are doing PD for these 3 purposes. And I think this is very, very important. When you are engaged in professional development, you will have job satisfaction. It feels so good, and you feel efficient, you feel the achievement, okay? But like we said, not all the teachers feel these things because of the reasons I tried to summarize on this slide here. Can you relate to any of them? Some teachers don't want to be engaged in any PD because they don't like the nature of the PD sessions. They simply don't believe that PD is not useful. And time is #1 concern for many teachers. I would love to, but I have a huge workload, teaching load. I don't have time for PD. And the last one can be interesting because some teachers out there can be, they don't want to leave their comfort zone. They don't want to learn anything new. They don't want to develop professionally because they are so happy, cozy, with their security blanket, whatever they have been doing for years, they want to keep doing it, like 1 year experience repeated 20 times thing. So these are the reasons why some teachers might have negative attitudes. So our aim here, hopefully, is to change this attitude. Of course, school managers, ELT managers, if you are out there, if you're listening to me, your role is very, very important in that too. Okay, so we emphasize the importance of individual professional development. We said it is better when it is self-initiative. So you can train me, you can educate me, but at the end of the day, I develop. Okay, you cannot point a gun to a teacher and say, hey, you need to professionally develop. All right, significant, meaningful, and long-term positive change will be achieved only when it comes as a decision from within the individual. So there are, in some institutions, I know there are top-down, bottom-up PD programs, which we are about to start discussing, institutional support. Before we go into top-down, bottom-up PD programs, I think we have to highlight one very important point, that school management should fully support professional development for their teachers. If there is no management support, then it will all be dependent upon the teachers. Okay, it will be even better if the managers, ELT managers, motivate their teachers, if they fully support them for their PD endeavors. Okay, so how can this be done? Imagine that you are working in an effective school that is planning to design a professional development program. They have to involve teachers at every stage. Teachers should be part of all the decision-making process, every stage. They have to decide what they want to learn, how they want to learn them, okay? It is usually not very useful, although it is common in many institutions. They prepare a menu of PD activities that's top-down. Here are the program for the seminars, you go join them. It doesn't work, okay? So there are some institutions like my institution, we focus on individualized professional development, depending on teachers' personal needs. We work with them one-on-one because it is differentiated, all right? So teachers should be asked what they want to learn and how they want to learn it. Now, in the remaining time, very quickly, I have to be very quick, time is running. Very quickly, I will show you a framework, a PD framework. If in your institution, if you are planning to do something like that, This is a framework designed by one of my colleagues here in Turkey. I will not go into detail, but your starting point should be to create a mission statement first for your PD program, and then identify the needs of the teachers in your school, surveys, focus groups, identify and analyze, come up with a list of the needs, and then you can start planning on what path you're going to follow and how you are going to introduce it to the school. And you have to highlight that it is based on their needs and it is actually coming from them, bottom up, not top down. And then it will be customized, right? It depending on the needs of your teachers, you create from the menu, long menu we just looked at, you pick and choose the PD activities that you think will be most useful for your teachers. Then you create the program, then you communicate it to the teachers. And I'm sure there will be some volunteer teachers, senior teachers who would like to work as teacher educators or trainers in your school. So you can train them for conflict resolution. That's important for teachers who can be resistant to professional development. And then this is the most important part, constantly collect feedback about the PD program, receive feedback, formal feedback, informal feedback, and action plan. Prepare an action plan. If necessary, improve your PD program. If the changes are needed, then go ahead and change them. Okay, but constantly evaluate and ask for feedback if it is useful, if something needs to be changed. Right? So this is my final slide. None of these things would happen if you are not passionate teacher. If you are passionate about your profession, if you love your students, like they say, there is a will, there is a way, you will definitely find a way. Even if your institution is not supporting you, you will definitely find a way to develop professionally to become more effective teachers for your students. So I would like to thank you very much for listening to me. I have my email address on the slide. So if you would like to contact me about any aspect of professional development, I would be more than happy to respond. So thank you. Bill, have I exceeded my time? I think I have.
You absolutely haven't. That was perfect timing, Bahar.
Oh, really?
Wonderful timing.
Okay, good. Thank you.
No, really. The timing was perfect. Not quite as perfect as the talk itself, but pretty good.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Bahar. What a talk! I just love how accessible that talk is. It can be meaningful. I bet it wasn't easy for you to write a talk that can be so accessible.
Thank you so much.
So thanks for putting everyone's perspective in your mind when you're putting it together.
Thanks. I hope everybody finds this useful.
I'm sure, of course they will. I think you've got hundreds of emojis, loads of claps.
Oh,
Everyone,
yeah.
let's see some hearts. I think I want some hearts. I'm going to put loads of hearts. There you go.
So much. Thank you. Thank you, guys. Thank you. So if there are any questions, I will be prepared to answer them.
Yeah, we've got, so Tamara's asked a question here. So to quote Tamar, in my opinion, all of the excuses teachers give for avoiding professional development are facetious, because a critical aspect of being an effective teacher is staying up to date with current practices and research. Therefore, shouldn't we insist on professional development that is relevant to the progress of technology, research tools, etc., in the 21st century?
Of course, of course. So I completely agree with the point this teacher is making. Like I said, if there is will, there is way. So we shouldn't. All these excuses are excuses. So if you want to develop professionally, you will definitely find a way to develop. We looked at so many different types of activities. I'm sure you can find some time to do one of these things. And another thing you need to do, like this teacher said, you have to seek ways of keeping yourself up to date in the field. If today everybody's talking about technology and AI, your job is to educate yourself, improve in this area. So always keep up to date, always.
So I heard that there was quite an interesting quote about AI, and it said that the people, some professions won't be necessarily left behind, but the people in those professions, there will be the people that make it, the people that know about AI and study AI and learn about how it might benefit them, and the ones that don't, and perhaps their jobs will be filled.
Yes.
I suppose that might be relevant. Is that relevant for teaching?
That's very relevant. I have been hearing lots of discussions about, oh, AI will replace teachers. There is no way. There is no way, guys. Teachers cannot be replaced by anything. AI is there for us to embrace and use as a tool and for better student learning. So we are all, initially I was also freaking out about AI, but now in time I am getting there. I'm convincing myself that I need to learn this because it's there. And we have to find, like you said, Bill, we have to find the benefits for our learners.
Yeah, absolutely.
You cannot escape from it.
Yeah, like you can't escape the internet, can you? You can't escape the internet. It's there, it's embedded, and probably AI will be.
Yeah, somebody just says strategic partner. I like that phrase.
Yeah. So we've had a question on social media. 1 second, just grabbing it up here. Can you suggest some links to opt for professional development sessions? So maybe sites. I mean, I can give you one, and that's the Macmillan Education Advancing Learning Academic Program, which you are watching right now. We do events, regular webinars. We've got a blog. We've now got a podcast. We've got a festival coming up. And we've got all sorts of stuff that you can stay up to date with. We will email you. If you opt in, then we will email you. So macmillanenglish.com/ALAP. Bahar, anywhere else?
No, that was wonderful. And I want to say something about what you're doing, Will. I think it's wonderful that you are repeating these sessions to make sure that you are reaching out to all the teachers all around the globe. And I think this is fantastic. So please keep doing this so that you can reach out to more teachers.
Thanks, Bahar. Yeah, I think because there's nothing like a live session. I think people can watch the recordings if you did it at 10 a.m. You know, someone in Peru can either get up in the middle of the night or they can watch the recording. But it's not the same, is it?
It's never the same. Now. It's never the same. Yeah.
Okay, I'm going to let you go, Bahar. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you
once again, and for putting together such a memorable session.
Thank you, Macmillan, and what a wonderful audience. Thank you so much for being here and listening to my presentation, guys. Thank you. Bye. You are good teachers. Your students are very lucky.
Thanks, Bahar. God, that's a lot of love hearts. God, you really took a heart when I said love hearts. More. I want more love hearts. I want millions of them. Great. I love hearts. Okay. So I'm assuming you can see my screen. I've got two things to tell you at this bit. Firstly, we've got something we would like to ask you again regarding professional development. Daria, could you just pop that up on the screen? It's another poll. So anyone in Facebook and LinkedIn, if you could put your answers in the comments box. So the question is, how important, so we are running this webinar now. We run quite a few webinars, well, not just webinars, events like this. So sort of 3 concurrent sessions that you can watch. We've got larger ones, smaller ones. We've got the cafes, we've got the blog. Anyway, we've got lots of stuff, lots of CBD stuff from Macmillan. What I want to know is, from your context, in your personal, individual context, how important is it for your own professional development, continual professional development, to attend webinars like this? How important are webinars like this? Not like this. There are no webinars like our webinars. I know you agree with that. There are no webinars like our webinars, but to attend webinars like this one, how important is it? So I'll say we've got about half people have clicked so far. And Facebook, LinkedIn, just put your answers in the comment box. On a scale of, let's say 5 is really important and 1 is not important at all. How important are webinars like this? Interesting. A few people have said not that important. No one said not important at all. No, actually, one person has said not important at all. I would question their presence here, actually. If I may be so bold, I would wonder why they were here. But you're very welcome, even if you don't find it important, of course. Okay, let's end that there, Daria, if you can, and then share the results. Thank you. So we've got 50%, very important. So it's not the top. I'm sure there are some things that are, maybe we should have asked that as well. What is at the top? What is the most important resource for you to be able to access to develop yourselves? What is the most useful resource? But thanks for that. So half people say it's very important. So it's obviously hovering around the top because you're here. And maybe there are many more people out there, many more teachers that don't see the benefit of webinars. But we just wanted to ask, just for the sake of surveying it and getting your answer from you. So thanks for voting on that. Okay, let's stop that there. I've got something to tell you about. I think you can see it on the screen. Quick question. No, not question. We haven't got time for questions. Stop it, Will. No questions. I'm going to tell you about Language Hub. If you don't already know, Language Hub is an English language course for adults. It's one of our flagship adult courses. And if you haven't heard of it, then you probably should, if you don't want to be saying. So one reason why we wanted to bring up Language Hub today in relation to Bahara's talk is that the teacher's book has got sections within it which would help you as a teacher decide what content you feel is a good place to go next in your own professional development. So within the teacher's book, there are methodology hub sections, which have got a wealth of methodology background to teach adult learners and practical tips from the Macmillan methodology books, which you might already know from, as Bahar said, Jim Scrivener, Scott Thornbury, Adrian Underhill. So some of the legends of ELT, writing some of those sections in Language Hub. There's also an app which gives teachers access to planning, management, and assessment tools. And there's a teacher's hub for Language Hub, for all teachers of Language Hub, where they will access CPD materials and extra resources for teaching the students to keep the classes energized and motivating and effective. So if you don't know Language Hub, scan the QR code and go and take a look. There's a link in the comments and the chats and below, everywhere, on your head, everywhere. There are links everywhere. Just click on one of those or scan one of those and you can find out more about Language Hub. Please do. Okay, another thing to let you know about, before I pass you on to the wonderful Kate Protsenko, is this. Today, was it today? Yeah, today, this morning. It's been a long day. This morning, we launched the Advancing Learning podcast. It's out now. You can start listening now. Please don't wait until Kate's finished. And then as soon as Kate's finished, go and listen to the podcast. So it's me and Harry. If you don't know, Harry Waters, he runs a school called Renewable English, and we work with him on all sorts of different things. And he and I are we're buddies, and we decided to make a podcast together. And I hope you like it. It's all things ELT, and I hope you take away a lot of things and enjoy it on your way to work or whenever you listen to your podcast. So scan the QR code, go and have a listen, and enjoy. We'll be updating that every couple of weeks or so. You'll get a new episode from me and Harry with special guest speakers coming into the sessions as well. So enjoy. Kate, are you there? I realise it's very dark in my room, but it's kind of a bit late now for me to change that.
I will. Yes, I was just going to say that it's really dark there.
It is. You can just see my face, I think, right? So I'm just, yeah. I'll change that by the time I come back. Okay, thanks for coming, Kate. So
thanks for
we've already agreed that I'm not going to tell you your life story before you actually go on, because that's part of the thing. So I do want to ask, if you don't mind, can we just get a bit from you? Why did you start teaching originally? So before you started teaching, why did you go?
I was a student. I was a university student when I started teaching, but I was majoring in French. I could already speak English fairly well, and I thought I wanted a job and I wanted some pocket money. So it was the best thing to try, and I loved it.
Stuck with it, and you were really good at it, apparently. Luckily, luckily for us.
Thanks.
Cool. Have a great session, Kate. I'll see you all later.
Thanks, Will. Thank you for having me, and thank you, Macmillan Education, for inviting me to do this webinar. And thanks, everyone, for joining this webinar, wherever you are, whatever time it is. So I'm just going to start by talking about the why behind this topic. And I'm going to talk about my career a little bit. Like Will said, I started teaching 15 years ago. Just wanted some pocket money. I loved it, and had my first lessons. I did CELTA fairly soon after my very first lessons, and then I loved that. And in 2013, I became a CELTA trainer, and I loved working with teachers. And I thought, I want to continue. And that's how I became a Delta trainer 2 years after that. And that's also the year when I became a manager. And all of those steps are what we would call vertical growth in the modern world, which means that I'm progressing up the career ladder. And in 2018, I organized my very first conference for teacher trainers from around the world, which was kind of part of my job as a manager, but it required a totally different skill set. So if we look at this point in my career, that's where I started developing horizontally. And then 2020, of course, COVID happened, and we all had major changes in our lives. And in 2021, I decided I wanted to move to ed tech and work in IT with technology, which is what I'm doing now. I'm working for a language learning platform where there are courses for self-learning, but I am managing a team of teachers who work worldwide 24/7. So it's still some sort of management, but it's just a different context. It's online, it's worldwide, and it requires a different skill set as well. So all of those little changes that happened to me, I'm sure you can relate to some of those. And let's look at our careers. What about you? What major change have you experienced as a teacher? If you could just send your ideas into the chat, and let's have a look at what you have. I've given you one example. I started teaching online when COVID happened, actually a little earlier than that. But I think had to move online fully with COVID. Let me have a look at what you have. Online teaching classes to companies, okay, that's a different thing. AI, good. I like that you mentioned that. Teaching with AI, opened my own school. Wow, okay. Virtual teaching, yes. Did your CELTA online? Ooh, nice. Okay. CELTA, some people are mentioning CELTA as a change, and I love that. I'll give you a couple more examples. If you've been teaching for a while now, you probably remember those moments when we had to stop or gradually stop using paper books and move to ebooks, probably supplement our paper books with ebooks. There was a point in my career when I had to start preparing my students for computer-based exams rather than paper-based exams. And that also meant a different skill set. That meant reading from the screen rather than from paper. AI, of course, and we all have to deal with AI-generated writing, but the other thing is our students are already using AI for work. So we might have to teach them to use AI as well. And we could potentially use it to generate materials and lots of other things. And, you know, little things like teaching shorter lessons, because in the busy world, students can't commit to 2-hour lessons or 90-minute lessons, and they ask for shorter lessons. I don't know if that's the experience you have, but that's what I've discovered in the past 2 years. And, you know, problems with attention span, we can't stay focused for a long time and stuff like this. So there are lots and lots of things happening in the world, and a lot of those things are not the things we are preparing ourselves for or the things that we are expecting. And it's always been like this, but right now the world is accelerating and the change is accelerating. If somebody tells you that your office life will look like this in 10 or 20 or 30 years' time, don't believe them. It's probably a bit too early for this. But if they tell you that your office life will not look like this in 10, 20, 30 years' time, don't believe them either, because they're probably wrong. There will be elements of this, we just don't know about it yet. And the appearance of robots in a language classroom will mean that we have to adapt to this, and it will require a different skill set from us. And there's a lot of research, especially at workplace, into the skills that we need and the skills that we're developing. And one recent survey shows that nearly half of the respondents say that they will probably need to learn a new skill for their current job within the next 6 months. What it means is that I'm a teacher and I know how to teach, I know how to use Zoom and stuff like that. And as a teacher, I will probably need to learn something completely new within the next 6 months. For instance, how to automate lesson reminders for my students, which is one thing I had to do in my job. And there are lots and lots of other things. Why does this happen? Because there are elements of our world which cause massive disruption, massive change in different contexts. And if we look at this chart, we'll see that there are 2 periods of time, 2 time frames, where there are things which have impacted the world in the past 6 to 12 months, such as COVID or remote work, and things which will have a lot of impact on our life in the next 2 years. And you'll see that the leaders in this category are AI, of course, automation, which I've already mentioned a couple of times, yes, skills shortages, different consumer behavior and stuff like this. So in general, what's happening in this world is that a lot of digital skills are becoming assumed for most professional jobs. For instance, in the past, as a teacher, I did not have to know a lot about computers or designing slides, or I didn't have to use all those fancy tools such as Zoom or Miro and stuff. These days, that's already assumed. That's a default thing. However, the things that are getting more and more valued in the workplace are more human-centric skills, such as critical thinking, leadership skills, analytical reasoning, and stuff like this. And they are skills which change less. I love the quote from Charles Darwin, who said that it's not the strongest and it's not the most intelligent ones who will survive, but it's those who can best manage change and adapt to change. This is a very important issue in a lot of offices, in a lot of companies, how people handle change, because things change every 2, 3, 5 years. And if we look at offices, they handle this in three ways. Very often it's hiring a new team or just replacing some people from their staff with the new members. But there are two more things which are getting increasingly popular. That's upskilling, or thinking about the skills we have now and upgrading them or making them better. And reskilling, which means developing a new skill or learning to use a new tool. And there are so many things in this world that sometimes we decide that we want to learn this particular skill, or I decide that I want to learn a particular programming language to complete tasks faster, but then it only stays relevant for a year or two or three, and I have to learn something again from scratch. And it makes me think that it actually makes me believe in this. As teachers, we really need to develop the lifelong learning skills in our students. And ideally, if we can, love for learning, because this is what they'll have to continue doing throughout their lives. What skills should we prioritize when we work with our learners? There's a research which says that there are skills which continue to be relevant and continue to be the same for a long time. Say, if you take the next 5 years, analytical thinking and critical thinking will more or less remain the same. Say 86% of the skill will be the same. If you learn it now, it will still be very relevant. Digital capabilities, same. Leadership skills, same. Technical skills and interpersonal skills are still very important, but you can see that they will be changing quite a lot. So what do we do about it? When we think about what it is that we're spending time on in the language classroom, I think we should be asking ourselves 3 questions. Are the skills we're teaching more durable or more perishable? And we'll look at this terminology in a minute. Are those skills transferable across roles, jobs, and industries? Which means that if I learn this skill now, can I use it later if I go into a different industry, if I take on a different role? And are the skills in demand? And will they be so in the future? Because it may be a durable skill, but it may no longer be very needed. Let's go back to the concept of transferability. And in very simple words, that's a skill that you can use in all jobs, no matter what your job title is or your field is. And I like to think about planning as an example of a transferable skill. So if I am a teacher and I know how to plan my lessons, it means that I have the skill of planning developed. And when I become a manager, it will be easier for me to learn how to plan the month, professional development activities, which Bahar was talking about, and other things, because I have the concept of planning. I understand the need for planning. So the format will differ, of course, and that's what the perishable thing is. But the durable part of it is I understand the need to plan, and I know where to start, and I know how to approach it. I've given you a list of examples of transferable skills. That's if you want to go back to this slide, which you will receive later, and if you want to look into the transferable skills a bit more. But I also want to point out that modern course books are a brilliant source of ideas for us. I've been working with lots of different course books, and the thing I love about Speak Your Mind, which is one of the course books I'm a big fan of these days, is that they incorporate those skills into the teacher's books, and we get a complete guide on how to actually help our students develop this. If we look at the first section, which is preparation or planning in a speaking lesson, it says that, we give our students a topic and we give them some time to think about that. As a whole class, we brainstorm lots of different ideas. We elicit those ideas. After that, let's give our students a minute or two to decide which of those ideas they would like to use in their own speaking. And then let them speak, of course. So if we add this little thing, it helps us show the students that before they say something, before they speak, they need to stop and think about it. And with time, if we do it once, twice, 3 times, it becomes more or less automatic. And it helps us develop this little planning or preparation skill in speaking, but it can also be transferred to writing. It can also be transferred to reading, as in before they read, they stop and they think, how am I actually going to approach this task? And, things like that. When we talk about all those skills, it's also very important to think about the concept of skill longevity. And there are 3 categories, and they're perishable, durable, and semi-durable skills. The perishable skills are those which are relevant for 2.5 years. And a lot of examples are technology skills, such as using a typewriter. So when I was a kid, my mom had a typewriter and she'd spend the evenings typing up some reports and things. And I thought, that's fancy. I want to learn how to do that and also do that in my job. And of course, by the time I grew up and started thinking about that, or even went to university, nobody needed typewriters any longer. And when I have kids, I'm not going to teach them how to use a typewriter. I think I might have to teach them how to type on a computer or an iPad, but I actually doubt it because I don't know how technology will change. There are also semi-durable skills, which have the half-life of 2.5 to 7.5 years. And they are more specific frameworks for technologies, processes, tools. A lot of computer programming languages belong to semi-durable skills, as in if you learn PHP, for instance, you probably have a job for 5 years. But if you don't upgrade your knowledge, if you don't learn and read and inquire into this area, in 5 years, you'll probably have less work because there will be new programming languages which might become more popular. It does not mean that PHP will not be used at all. There will be just less work with it. And there are durable skills, those which will stay relevant for a long, long time, longer than 7 years. And they are more abstract, more philosophical things, such as mindset, project management, communication, leadership, creativity, and lots of other things. I've actually included a slide with examples of durable and perishable skills here for you. But the point is that durable skills are more fundamental to our nature. And they are, funnily enough, more difficult to obtain. There is some correlation between durable and perishable skills, as in, I mentioned the programming language as one of the semi-durable skills, actually. So when we teach our students a programming language, or when we teach English, we probably give them a tool for some time. But if while doing this, we teach them how to learn the programming language, because there are basic principles to how it works, as in, in a foreign language, in English, there's some meta language, as in noun, verb, different categories, aspects of tenses and stuff. So if we focus on this more, we give our learners a tool for learning something on their own later. And the ability to learn a programming language is actually a more durable skill. And I really like it how modern course books address those things, both in the students' books and in teachers' books, because I'll be honest with you, when I just started teaching, I didn't have a lot of free time, and I thought, I'm going to try and plan good lessons. I was fresh off the CELTA, and I wasn't using the teacher's book much. Whereas these days, what I do when I take a new course book series is I read through the teacher's book, all of the intersections, because they tell you about the philosophy behind the book. So I've chosen a couple of examples from Speak Your Mind, which I think is one of the best course books for developing those skills which are more durable. And I'm going to talk about mediation first, because I find it quite fascinating. For instance, let's take a man and a woman, say John and Mary, and they are communicating. They're speaking on some everyday topic. There are things which they have in common, but there are differences between them. For instance, they speak English at different levels. One person could be C1, the other person could be B2. They have different first language. They have different jobs. So if Mary is in chemistry and she talks to John, he might not understand the specific terms she uses. So she'd have to grade her language. Different types of thinking, analytical thinking and holistic thinking. If Mary likes to think about details and has a great level of attention to detail, she'll talk about that, which could potentially annoy John if that's not his personality type. They may have different opinions. And mediation is all about taking those differences into account and actually thinking about my own characteristics less and thinking about my partners or my interlocutors' characteristics more. As in, when I speak to this person, I'm trying to make sure that they understand everything and they find speaking to me comfortable, convenient, and things like that. This was not part of the CFR companions until 2018. And in those past 5 years, those skills have been getting more and more attention in course books, in the classroom, everywhere. If we look at a course book page, this is how it's shown there. There's a section where we think about different cultures, and there's a question about medical practices. Which of those are used in your country and how effective do you think they are? So what I would do is I would ask my students to look at those questions, those topics, and decide if this is something that's used in their country, but not say anything just yet. So have a look. Tai Chi, herbal medicines, and conventional medicine. Is this something that's used in your country? But don't tell us. Just think about that. And then you probably have an opinion about those things. So I would ask my students to look at the opinion on the screen, decide if they agree or disagree without saying anything yet. I know there will be 1 or 2 students who will say that, but you know. So have a look at this. I'll give you 30 seconds. Decide if you agree or disagree with the opinion, but don't say anything. Don't send a message yet. Now, you've probably decided. I'll give you this situation. Imagine that that speaker is attending a medical conference and you are there as well. Which of those do you think you could use if you wanted to communicate effectively with that person? And you'll see that there are examples of different functions, as in clarifying misunderstanding or miscommunication. And there are examples of the actual functional exponents to be used. And here I would go into those functional exponents with my students. We would focus on the meaning. We would look at pronunciation, would look at the form. We would probably practice them in some context. And notice that I haven't asked my students to respond and to express their opinion yet. And only after we've looked at all this, I would get them to express their opinion using the language, using the strategies, actually, not just the language, but the strategies that we've looked at. There's a couple of things that are important that we need to keep in mind when doing this. If we want to teach mediation, just like any other durable skill or transferable skill, we need to teach the strategies openly. So if we're doing this, if we're asking our students not to express their opinion, they need to understand why. And we should probably tell them right away at the beginning of the lesson. It's important to provide a lot of practice. I like to do that through drilling, through mini controlled practice, as a lot of that available in course books, and as teachers, we can also do that. It's also very important to reflect on how well we use those strategies. So if we have a role play and we use those strategies, it's a good idea to then reflect, did we achieve the aim that we had? And finally, when doing all this, we're kind of shifting the focus from language as a subject. We're no longer teaching grammar or vocabulary. We're teaching the language as a tool for achieving our communication goals. I did not invent this framework. Like I said, I like to use teachers' books. And this is what I got from Speak Your Mind Level 5 teacher's book. And that's what I use in my lessons. That's the framework I follow. And I feel that it helps my students become more confident mediators. Let's also look at a simpler thing, and a simple receptive skill such as reading. Now, in the past, I loved lessons in newspapers, and 10 years ago, I would bring in newspapers, get the students to flick through, find an article they want to read. I would ask them how they decide and stuff. But these days, that's a lot less relevant because a lot of my students will read the news online and probably on their phones on a news app. So I would still ask them to go to their app or to go online and find an article they want to read. And the mode of delivery of the news has changed. And there are things which have changed, as in, we need to turn the pages with newspapers and scroll with websites. But there are things which are still true. And that's, the topic is usually in the heading and the title. There are pictures which support the content of the article, and they're there to catch the attention, and lots of things like this. And if in the past, I asked my students a lot of factual questions, as in find the date, find the place, what does number 37 mean? These days, thanks to all the training I've had and thanks to the course books I'm using, I'm asking reflective questions or metacognitive questions. If you look at this task, again, it's from Speak Your Mind Level 5. If you look at this task, the first question you see there is, what type of text is this? And why did the author write it? And who is it aimed at? And that's how we help our students develop a more durable skill, as in, the type of text will change. And we can't teach our students to read all kinds of texts. We can't give them scientific articles from websites, magazines, because there's countless numbers. But if we tell them how to understand what type of text it is, they get a tool which helps them deal with this task. The other thing is there are lots of reflective questions here, such as how do different types of questions help you find different types of information? And what is the benefit of sharing and comparing your answers? I don't know about you, but I often had this question from my students. They often said, Kate, but why do I have to show my answers to my partner? I know everything, let's just check. And that's where we go into this. And that's where we learn about lifelong learning, scaffolding, learning from peers, and things like that. So I've stopped ignoring the course book and all the advice, the teacher's book and all the advice we get there. And these days I'm focusing more and more on the metacognitive strategies that are shown in a lot of course books. And one final thing I wanted to go through is thinking skills, because they're also very important. Summarizing, for example, is one of the thinking skills. And in this part, you're given a text about Bitcoin, which is still quite fancy, hopefully. And you're asked to read a summary of what summarizing it is. And then you're given a text about Bitcoin and the summary. And you have to look back at the explanation of what the summary is and decide if it's a good summary or not. And I find it very helpful because by looking at an example that's not exactly very good, you can identify the flaws and see how to improve that, which is one of the final tasks in this sequence. Now, if you're familiar with Bloom's taxonomy, you know that there are higher order thinking skills and lower order thinking skills. And you know, in my research, I came across the three types of categories. That's understanding information, which is a lower order thinking skill, such as recalling facts or summarizing. And notice that this summarizing is still a very low order thinking skill. Manipulating information, which is somewhere in between, and analyzing and, you know, problem solving, things like that. And generating new information, which is a higher order thinking skill. And it's also our job to help our students get there with the help of our lessons. So to summarize, I noticed that focus on upskilling and reskilling is getting more and more popular in a lot of companies and a lot of workplaces, because I work with quite a lot of corporate clients. It's very expensive and very difficult to replace the people you already have. And it's always better to upskill and reskill. And in order for our students to be able to go through the process of upskilling and reskilling, we, as teachers of English, should help them get the skills needed for that. They can be durable, semi-durable, and perishable skills. And I think we should move away from teaching facts and summarizing and recalling and do more higher order thinking skills. And of course, we should always think about whether the skills are transferable or non-transferable, and make it explicit to our students. Show them that if they know how to do it in English, they potentially know how to do it in all the other languages or a lot of other languages. Now, like I said, you're going to get my slides, and I've included all the sources I used in this research in case you'd like to get more information. And I think we're going to have a couple of minutes for questions if you have any. I can see a couple. And if you want to keep in touch, if you'd like to ask me something or say something or continue this conversation, send me an email. It's kate@promova.com, and I'll be happy to chat to you about this. Will, I can see you've joined us. Do we have some time for questions?
Of course we do, Kate. Thank you so
Great.
much. What a
Thank
talk.
you.
Thank you. Really,
Thanks.
really just inspiring and wide, and you sort of done more than you promised. Do you know what I mean? You said something, you said what you're going to do, and you've really just gone overboard in the best way. So thank you so much.
Thank you. It's always a pleasure.
Good, good. So yeah, we have had some questions.
Yeah.
So Tamar has asked two, and I think it's only fair that we ask at least one of those.
Yeah.
So I'm going to go with her first one. Tamar has asked about AI. Should you, in terms of how you approach this or introduce it as a classroom approach, I think is what she's talking about here, do you recommend confronting it head on by delineating which tasks students are allowed to use AI for and which ones they're not? And if we don't allow them to do it, for example, essay writing, are there any AI detection tools yet that we can check whether they've been using that or not?
There's several questions, and I'm a big fan of AI these days, so I'll be very happy to answer that. There are some tools, a lot of them are paid, so I don't know if I can promote them actually, and honestly, I don't remember all the tools. What I do is I take a text and I go to ChatGPT and excuse me, I give the context as in you're a copywriter, proofreader, and you check for AI. So read this text and identify if it was written by a human being or by AI, and please explain why. So as simple as that.
Okay.
As for confronting students, it's a tricky question. I think if we simply tell them that they're not allowed to do it, it will work for a lot of students, but I don't think it's enough for those who, want to develop critical thinking, have the critical thinking. They will always ask why. So I think that there are ways to show them why they shouldn't be using AI. As in, we could generate a text with the help of AI and then compare it with those texts they produce and show why their texts are much better. We can teach them how to identify texts written by AI. Also, if we generate a text and then compare it to their text. And, it's that it kind of then becomes obvious that if you write an email with the help of AI and send it to somebody who knows what AI is, they will think, oh, great, this person has the skill. But then they will think, this person didn't really even bother. They didn't have the time to write an email for me. So, I think we need to have a conversation about it, really.
Yeah, and I think there's going to be a lot over the next few years of how things are going to be refined in terms of what people want to use AI for. And how teachers can harness it, I suppose, in their teaching.
I think so. Yeah.
There have been lots more questions, Kate, but I'm gonna stop it there. I think because we're running already 15 minutes too late. Not anything to do with you, but just these things always happen, and I don't want to take too much time over today, including yours. Okay. Thank you again so much for putting this together and for this gigantic day that you're doing to share your knowledge and experience with us, Kate.
Thanks for having me.
Pleasure, as always.
Thank you.
Okay, see you soon, Kate. Thanks.
Bye-bye. Thanks, everyone, for listening to this talk.
Thanks. Okay, you got me. One last thing. One final thing. Kate was talking about this course here. I'm going to ask in the chat, who, if you're on Facebook and LinkedIn, you're welcome to put this in the chat box too. Who has heard of Speak Your Mind? Who knows the Macmillan course Speak Your Mind? Renata has. Beatrice uses this book. Kelly's heard of it. Great webinar. I agree, Katarzyna. Thank you. Abongile? Abongil? Yeah, good. Never heard of it. I have, Zoe. Good. Okay. Haven't used it yet, but I've heard of it. Great. Okay, well, I'm going to tell you a little bit about this. It's an English language course, of course, American English. And today, Kate has shared loads of ideas aiming to help students achieve their goals in professional and personal spheres. And through Speak Your Mind, we sort of help students through whatever challenges they might face in their future. So, for example, there are sections in Speak Your Mind called Confident Communicator, and there are Follower Pro films, for example. So it really is kind of helping students engage and interact with the professional community, but also a personal community too. So the series connects language practice to real life scenarios and gives them the skills they need to thrive, the skills that Kate has just been talking about. It prompts learners to explore about different perspectives, so helping with those critical thinking skills that Kate was talking about, analysing information and articulating their viewpoint and proposing solutions. So talking about that Bloom's taxonomy again. And yeah, so it's a really great course if you're teaching adults and you're helping adults to integrate into maybe an English-speaking professional environment, which is happening quite a lot at the moment. I'm sure you agree. This could be the course that you use to teach them English and to teach them communication strategies. Take a look. There's a QR code right there on the screen. If you're on Facebook and LinkedIn, there's a link. There are links everywhere. Just look everywhere. There are links all over the place. So just click on the link wherever you can see one or scan the QR code. Final thing. In a couple of weeks, we've got our final event of the year before we take our break over the holidays. So we've got three behemoths of ELT at an event called the Macmillan Education Winter Fair. You might have come to it before. I hope you have, but if you haven't, please do come. It's a really cool way to end the year. It's sort of a light-hearted, still CPD, still certificates. If you need your certificates, still professional development opportunities, but it's got a bit more of a light touch. We have a bit of fun just to close off the year. And this year we've got three very special guests: David Crystal, his son Ben Crystal, and Chia Suan Chong. So please do come and have a look. You can go to the website and explore more about that event and find out what it's all about, and register now if you want to. So that's on the 12th of December, in about a week and a half, not long. And then we'll close up for the winter break. Certificates are coming, an email within a week will come to your email. It won't be today, it won't be Monday, probably not Tuesday even, but it will be coming to your email within the next week. Check your spam, just in case it goes through there. But also, you will also have a virtual goodie bag. If you're on Facebook and LinkedIn, there should be a link coming in the chat box quite soon where you can click that and get your certificate as well. So hopefully that's everyone covered. I hope it is. Anyway, enough of my babbling. Have a lovely rest of the day, everyone. And we'll see you in a couple of weeks. Thanks a lot for coming. Bye.